Really sad update to bring you this morning. We're learning the people involved in this crash were all members of Chicago's EmpIIre Dance Team. They're an award-winning dance team. The company's CEO telling me they were all together after practice when this crash happened, leaving 2 of them dead and 3 of them here in the hospital this morning. We'll show you video we have of the aftermath of that crash. You'll see a car badly damaged there and a big response from the Chicago Fire Department and Illinois State Police and Chicago Police. Were told this happened just around 1 a.m.
He had a good personality, a smart mouth like any teenager would be. Lovable. But everybody loved him. He was
family oriented. That baby loved family.
He was very passionate about what he believed in. He cared for people.
In the early hours of Thursday, February 19th, 2026, while most of Chicago was asleep, 5 young people were driving home on the Bishop Ford Freeway after a night out following dance practice. They were laughing, probably tired, probably replaying the night in their heads the way young people do after a good time with people they genuinely care about. None of them could have known that within minutes, 2 of them would never make it home. At approximately 1:15 a.m., on the northbound lanes of I-94 near the 111th Street on-ramp in the Pullman area of Chicago's far south side, their SUV lost control. What followed was a violent single-vehicle rollover. The vehicle flipped completely, landing on its side. Debris scattered across both the road and the surrounding grass like the scene had simply exploded outward. Emergency calls came flooding in. Ambulances, fire trucks, and Illinois State Police vehicles converged on that stretch of Bishop Ford within minutes. The lights alone, blue and red bouncing off the overpass walls in the dead of night, told the story before any official word came through. 2 of the 5 passengers were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 others were pulled from the wreckage and rushed to nearby hospitals. At least one was described by reporters on the ground as being in grave condition. Another had sustained broken bones in both legs. These were not minor injuries. These are the kinds of injuries that change a person's life. That means surgeries, rehabilitation, months of pain, and a psychological journey that the physical recovery only scratches the surface of. By the time the sun came up over Chicago, those 3 survivors were in hospital beds, and investigators were still piecing together exactly what caused that SUV to flip on a stretch of freeway that, at 1 a.m., should have been one of the quietest roads in the city. Illinois State Police moved quickly to secure the scene and open an investigation. All northbound lanes in the area were shut down, creating a ghost-like stretch of empty expressway where, just minutes before, 5 young people had been traveling home. The lanes did not reopen until around 4:40 a.m. The on-ramp at 111th Street remained closed well into morning as investigators worked the scene. By 6 a.m., a crowd had begun forming nearby. Family members, friends, community members who had seen the news and needed to be somewhere close to where it happened. Even if there was nothing they could do, the cause of the crash has not been officially confirmed. That uncertainty is its own kind of torment for the people closest to the story. Letitia Waters, the CEO of EmpIIre Dance Institute, the Southside dance organization both victims belong to, spoke to NBC Chicago in the early morning hours, still visibly processing what she had just learned. She said the group had been out for the night after practice, on their way home, and that conflicting accounts were already circulating about what triggered the crash. Somebody said a car hit them. Somebody said something fell on the window, she told reporters. I honestly don't know that part. That honesty, that raw admission of not knowing, captured exactly what the entire community was feeling in those hours.
They all was out having a good time coming from, I don't know if it was the bowling alley or not, but they was actually on their way home. I don't know, like, how they lost control. Somebody said a car hit them. Somebody said something fell on the window. I honestly don't know that part.
Nobody had answers. Everyone had questions. What the community did have almost immediately was grief, and it moved fast. Social media lit up across Chicago's South Side within hours of the crash. Tributes, prayers, and shock reactions began pouring in from dancers, former teammates, teachers, and parents who had watched these young people grow up inside EmpIIre's program. The dance community in Chicago is tight-knit in a way that outsiders sometimes underestimate. These are not people who simply attend the same classes. They travel together for competitions. They train together through injuries. They celebrate championships as a unit. And they lean on each other during the hard seasons, losing 2 members of that family in a single night on the way home from practice, hit in a way that even those who have experienced loss before described as something different, something heavier. Art and Motion Art School, the creative art high school on Chicago's South Shore, where one of the victims was a junior, released an official statement from Principal Dion Steele. The school confirmed the loss and described the impact on students, teachers, and staff. When a school has to send that kind of message to its community on a Thursday morning, the ripple effect is immediate. Classrooms become grief rooms. Teachers who came to work prepared to teach find themselves instead holding space for teenagers who are trying to make sense of something that makes no sense. Counselors get called in. Parents call the school. The ordinary rhythm of a school day collapses entirely, and what replaces is a collective attempt to survive a shared loss together. The co-CEO of EmpIIre Dance Institute, Dwayne, spoke with raw emotion about both young men. His words were not polished or press-ready. They were the words of someone who had watched these people grow, who had invested in them, who had celebrated their wins, and now had to stand in front of camera and explain that 2 of his own were gone. I had seen them since they were kids, he said. That single sentence carries the full weight of what community-based organizations like EmpIIre represent on Chicago's South Side. This was not a professional organization losing employees. This was a family losing children. And that distinction matters enormously when you look at how this crash is landing across Chicago.
Hollywood is a director of the #1 dance game in the city of Chicago. He also a rapper, you know what I'm saying? Isaiah Flemister, a #1 dancer, top grand champion dancers. These kids are out the way, you know what I'm saying, doing something positive. It's just unfortunate they was out having fun and this happened.
People are not just mourning 2 individuals. They are mourning what those individuals represented. The proof that dance, discipline, and community can carve out a path for young people in a city that has not always made that path easy. EmpIIre Dance Institute has over 200 dancers, has accumulated over 3,000 championship titles, and has served the South Side for more than 2 decades. It is the kind of institution that parents trust with their children not just for the trophies, but because it keeps them focused, connected, and purposeful. When something like this happens to members of that family, it shakes the faith of an entire neighborhood, not in the organization, but in the simple assumption that doing everything right is enough to keep you safe. The stretch of I-94 where this crash occurred is a state-controlled expressway that, according to traffic safety researchers, accounts for nearly half of all fatal crashes in Chicago despite representing only 9% of the city's total road network. In the overnight hours when traffic thins out, speeds on these corridors routinely climb. There are fewer vehicles to slow drivers down, fewer witnesses, and when something goes wrong at high speed on a freeway, the margin between a close call and fatality collapses almost entirely. This is not a new problem. Traffic advocates and Southside community organizers have been raising the alarm about this corridor and others like it for years. What happened at 1:15 a.m. on February 19th is, in that context, not a random tragedy. It is the latest entry in a pattern that the data has been documenting for a long time. People across Chicago woke up to this news, and the reactions range from devastation to outright anger. Many in the South Side community express frustration not just at the loss itself, but at the feeling that these roads have always been dangerous and that the communities who travel the most, predominantly Black and Latino residents on the South and West Sides, have had to absorb that danger disproportionately for decades. Lazarus Gonzalez was 25 years old. To people outside the dance world, that might sound like someone still finding their footing. But inside EmpIIre, Lazarus was already a veteran. He had come up through the program, earned his championships, and made the choice that separates the truly committed from everyone else. He stayed and gave back. By the time he died, he was a director within the organization, mentoring younger dancers, shaping their technique, and carrying the kind of quiet authority that you cannot fake. His nickname, Hollywood, was not just a stage name. It was a reputation. The people who watched him perform understood immediately why he had earned it. Outside of dance, Lazarus was a 25-year-old young man navigating everything that comes with that age: ambitions, relationships, questions about the future, the particular pressure being someone that others look up to before you have fully figured yourself out. He was the kind of person his community was counting on for the next 20 years. That future is now gone, and the gap he leaves behind in EmpIIRE's leadership structure is one that cannot simply be filled by finding a replacement. Boaz Flemister was 17 and still very much becoming. A junior at Art and Motion Art School, Bo was the kind of teenager whose energy preceded him. His mother, Angela, described him with a mother's perfect honesty. Smart mouth, big heart, the life of any room he entered. He had been dancing since he was young, growing up inside EmpIIRE's family in a way that shaped his identity as much as anything else in his life. At 17, he was still assembling the person he was going to be. Dance was central to that assembly. So it was his school, his friendships, and the community that had watched him grow from a child into a young man with genuine talent and a personality that people were naturally drawn toward. Bo's mother said that until she could put her eyes on him, the reality of his death had not fully set in. That sentence alone captures something profound about the specific cruelty of sudden loss. The mind protects itself by refusing to accept what the heart already knows. Angela Hongo lost her son on a Thursday morning without any warning, without any chance to say goodbye, without any preparation that grief sometimes, not always, but sometimes affords. She is now living in the space that opens up after something like this, and there are no words adequate for that space. Now come the questions that this tragedy forces us to sit with, not because they are comfortable, but because they are necessary. How many families on Chicago's South Side have to receive that call in the middle of the night before the infrastructure that puts their children at risk is treated as an emergency it actually is? What does it do to the 3 survivors who were in that vehicle, who lived when the people beside them did not, to carry that specific kind of survival forward? How does a community that has already absorbed so much loss continue to send its young people out into the world with hope intact? And what does it say about us collectively that it consistently takes the deaths of young, promising, community-rooted people to briefly focus our attention on dangers that have always been there? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the questions that Bo's mother, Lazarus's family, and everyone connected to EmpIIRE Dance Institute are sitting with right now. If this story moved you, share it. Not for engagement, but because the families of Lazarus Gonzalez and Boaz Flemister deserve for their names to be known beyond a news cycle. Light a candle, leave a comment, reach out to someone you love tonight. And if you are in Chicago, pay attention to the roads that are being flagged as dangerous in your community and add your voice to the people demanding better. 2 lives were lost on February 19th. Make sure they are not forgotten by February 20th.